Proud of You is a parenting advice podcast and support group for dads hosted by two goofy dads. They are not pediatricians, nutritionists, OBGYNs, psychologists, nor are they authorities on parenting. They're just two dinguses trying to figure it all out. Their advice should not be taken as expert information. Parenting looks different for everyone, and there's no wrong way to be a dad. Frankly, if you're taking the time to listen to a podcast about it, you're already doing a great job. And these dads are proud of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Welcome back. It's been a couple weeks, and here we are. We have not left. I am Derek Motta, in case you forgot.
And I am Andrew Goody. You could never forget. And we are proud of you. Sorry, sport. We missed a couple things. Dad life happens. Derek moved. I got a new job. Things have just been a little bit crazy. And, we've been busy showing up for our families. And, we want to show up for all of you. We want to be here every week, but we're real, and the transparency of that is sometimes we're going to miss some weeks, but we're back in action, hoping to discuss some new things, and we've got a lot in the works. So I'm excited to see where the next couple of weeks take us. But this week I have a question for Derek, because I'm in a phase of my life where I have one child, and Derek has surpassed that phase.
Long time ago.
So veteran dad Derek Motta, tell me about transitioning from being a father of one to having more than one kid, right? Because Emily and I are having that conversation. Alana just turned 2 years old. We're talking about what does baby number 2 look like? Are we going to have a second kid? If we do, when are we going to have a second kid? And what does that look like? What does that transition look like?
So I want to say it's funny though, and you probably know the story is. So the 3 kids in our house, well, at the time, the 2 kids in our household, you have Lucas, who is 10 years different than Noah.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, Noah's going to end up loving Lucas, and Lucas is going to turn around and go to college or leave or whatever kids are doing these days. And so we're like, we need to give Noah a friend. And Ivy was born.
Yeah.
It was more of we were looking towards the future of Noah, and there's nothing wrong with being an only child.
Yeah.
But Noah gonna grow through the first, the really big years of his life, learning that, hey, I have a brother who's always there, to then nothing for the next, 13 years. We felt like that was just gonna be devastating for him.
Yeah, that age gap is kind of tough, because you've got that kind of, your siblings are like built-in friends, right?
Yeah.
And you've got that built-in friend for, like you said, he's 10 years older, so 18 years, maybe a little bit longer, depending on what he decides to do and when he moves out, and if the housing crisis corrects in the next 8 years and he can ever afford to move out of your house.
Oh God.
But then when he goes away, yeah, you're right. You've got a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old with no older brother anymore, who's gotten used to having that built-in friend. It's funny you said it's. Go ahead.
No, and it's we have the means. We had the means. I mean, I'm not saying we don't still, but that we could do that. Obviously, I'm not saying if you have one kid, think of how lonely, or you have a huge age gap, just think of how lonely your kid's gonna be and have another. Obviously, look at your situation. But we don't ever regret having our second one. All the other 2 of mine, whole different stories, so they don't really tie into this topic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's funny because you mentioned, it's okay to be an only child. That's actually been a big part of the conversation that Emily and I are having, is Alana is so good with other kids, and she's so friendly and so outgoing. We're like,
Yes, she
should totally have a sibling. She should totally. And then I'm like, you know what? But what if she's super badass and she just gets to be really badass all on her own and have a bunch of really cool friends and, cousins and whatever. because you know, Emily and I, neither Emily or I are only child. I'm one of two, she's one of three, and so like we both had siblings, you know, growing up, and I love having an older sister. She was, you know, we obviously went back and forth as siblings always do, right?
Yeah,
We
of
were best friends
course.
some weeks and hated each other other weeks, and we'd go back and forth through phases, and frankly, like we still do that, right? Like we're in our 30s and we have, you know, months where we don't talk to each other. We don't swing quite as far anymore, but like, you know, there'll be a week where we go out to drinks 2 or 3 times, and then we won't see each other for a couple months just because life happens, you know.
And
Um,
I want to say, because like you two, like, and both of us, we grew up with siblings. I grew up with my half sister full time, and then every summer I'd see my stepbrother, my stepsister. So like you said, built-in friends, and it was awesome. And like I loved that feeling. And I didn't lose my friend, my older brother, until he turned 18, but I was 17 at that time. So like I was able to process it. Yeah, did that summer suck? You bet your ass it did. But I just like I never wanted that for my like I never wanted, I don't know. I guess I wanted that for my kids to have that friend of theirs. But
yeah,
that's coming from my opinion, my personal experience.
yeah. So the biggest hesitation, and I don't know, hesitation is probably not the right word. The biggest concern that I have is what that looks like, right? Because going from not having kids to having a kid was a huge lifestyle shift, right? Like it was just me and Emily all the time, top priority, and now this baby is the world, right? And like
Mhm.
me and Emily are backseat on everything, and I love that, and I'm happy about it, and it's great. But you know, it was hard, especially the first like 3 months, 6 months of being new parents. It was hard to keep dating each other. You know, we had that episode and we talked a little bit about, you know, that adjustment of maintaining your relationship through parenthood. I feel like transitioning into two kids is going to be so much more, right? Because the typical dynamic there is mom parents the newborn, dad parents the toddler, and you both kind of live concentric lives together in the same house, but you're never actually seeing each other because mom is always taking care of the newborn and dad is always taking care of the older child. So, you know, what is that, as somebody who's been through that and has experience, you know, like am I on the right track? Is that,
I
you
see,
know,
and I don't think like our situation was not like that. We we spend all our time together, and at the time, like, what was it? So let's take Noah. So like Lucas was already in the picture, and then we had Noah. So then we're bringing in this entirely new, um, this new baby, and then we moved to Georgia, and then all we had was each other because we didn't have, we or the internet was absolute crap, phone service is crap, so we can't sit there and distract ourselves like this, like most people do. So we spent time together, and I think that helped a lot. And I know most people don't have, I don't even want to say that luxury, but like that luxury, because in the end, I feel like it really helped. And then Ivy was just a different case, as you know, and I might have mentioned she was a preemie. So like a lot of the attention went towards her from both of us because we had that fear that something was going to happen.
yeah,
But I think because we had built such a strong like family bond, it was never I'm gonna go take care of Noah and Lucas and you take care of Ivy. It was like, hey, we're all still part of the same team. Granted, everybody's pro mom and anti dad. So they always needed her for more than they ever needed me for. And that's just being a dad. But um yeah, we never had any issues. And I feel like even if Ivy was born the full term and everything, it Noah being as young as he was still in diapers at the time. Um, I'm trying to think. I think he was eating solid foods by that time. So, but it was still like watching him, but still changing his diaper and everything. Like nobody got put on the back burner.
yeah,
It was just one extra thing that we had to do in our lives, and we were okay with it because like we signed up for it. And and I think it's a mindset thing. As long as you're not going to be like, man, now how are we going to split our time? Like you don't have to split your time. Like
yeah, yeah. And I guess that's great advice, right? Like throw that mentality out and just face it the way, and that's the way I went into parenting when Alana was born, right? Is like it wasn't uh love isn't a limited resource, right? Like
Mhm.
having Alana didn't take away from how much I loved Emily, or take away from the time that we spent. The way that we spent time together changed, and that looks different now. um but she's just another piece of our puzzle. Adding in another baby um can just be another part of that, right?
And like I said, I am pro having multiple children. Like I have multiple children, and it's a half Mexican side of me. I've always wanted a big family. Um, I don't know why. Maybe because seeing my mom's side of the family, she has, not including my mom, what, 5 siblings? So like growing up and
Yeah, big
until
family.
recently, like I didn't realize my that her youngest sister was only, what was it, like a couple months older than me, or a couple, like maybe a couple months to a year older than me. So like to me, I grew up with my aunts and my uncles. Like whenever we'd go pick up my stepbrother, my stepsister. Um, so it was like having a big family was normal. Then we had, like I said, the four of us. So I'm pro having multiple kids as long as you can financially do it. Obviously, kids are fucking expensive. Like
Well,
like
and there's so much that goes into it, right? Like if you have one kid and you want one kid, great.
yeah.
Like you're in an awesome position. We're deciding, right? Like Emily and I are leaning towards, and it's so funny, man, because when we first started dating, a decade ago now, um, Emily told me like early on in our relationship that her goal was to be Molly Weasley. She wanted 7 redheaded kids. Uh, and I was like, 2 or 3 is a great number of kids to have. And then probably about 3 or 4 years into our relationship, we started talking about like what like actual family would look like. And she was like, yeah, like probably like 5 kids. And I was like, man, like 2 or 3 is a really good number. It's a really solid. Um, and then we had a lot of, and Emily was like, one is great. One is so good. And I'm like, 2 or 3 is a really good number. So we, my opinions on this have been set for a while, but we're in flux. And honestly, like my opinion has changed since having Alana, and it's purely because she's so cool. And like I'll gush and brag about my kid all the time, but like you've met Alana, she's a
I've
really
met
good
Alana. Yeah,
kid.
she is a
She's really
fantastic
cool,
kid.
and
Like
like I kind of just want to let her be a badass and be the center of the world. But then there's that Genghis Khan part of my brain that's like, make more. We made one cool baby, make more.
and you've met Noah, and they were like, "There's no way we can make another great, awesome baby." And then boom, Ivy. Like if it's not both of them, it's one or the other. Just we could not imagine our lives without both of them. Like, and I'm not trying to leave Lucas out of this. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, yeah.
as two kids, like especially in your situation, 2 kids close in age, like it has been so many laughs, so many good times. Like, yes, there's bad times too, but like I think the good and the funny and it's just like watching them grow up together and learn together, like that outweighs everything. Like I will be broke. I would like to do it again. If it meant I was broke, I would do it again. Like that is like how hard set I am on have that second kid.
Yeah,
And yes,
man.
because Alana is fantastic. And just imagine 2 of her.
Yeah. Well, and that's, like it's funny because as you were talking about like, splitting your time and doing things as a family, right? Like I have this hesitancy because of the social stereotype, I guess, if you want to call it that, that like when you have a second baby, like within, you've got a toddler and an infant, mom is going to take care of the infant and dad's going to take care of the toddler because infant's going to need mom more. Um, but when Alana was born, I took care of her all the time. Like I was bedtime parent right from the beginning. I did all the diaper changes. Like not to say that Emily didn't do a ton, like she absolutely did, but like it wasn't like, oh, mom is taking care of the infant and I'm gonna go, not have another kid to take care of. Like So I would imagine that when we have another infant, it'll probably be that way, right? Like when Emily is breastfeeding the infant, sure, I'll be hanging out with Alana and catering to her needs. But then, I can be the one to put the new baby down to bed while, Emily and Alana do their little bedtime routine or whatever,
Yeah, and like, and that's like taking care of Alana while like using your example, like while she's breastfeeding, like it's more to allow the baby some peace. Like, so it's not I'm giving you attention because it's now your segment of time. It is you're helping different sections of your household at that point, for
Yeah,
different
totally.
reasons. So, like I said, it's kids are expensive. 5 to 8 kids I wouldn't do because like the joke you made earlier, the housing market, like you can't afford that. You got to be
Man,
rich to do that. Um,
it's crazy. I know people with 5 or 6 kids, and I know people who I don't know anybody from our generation who has huge families, but I have some friends growing up who were like one of 11 kids, and like I just can't even imagine. Like
I couldn't either. Like,
I'd need 100 acres just to spread out the activities. Like,
yeah,
and I
no.
can't imagine losing Legos on 100 acres. So
I know one of the big things is like so now we're gonna go like the age gap here. The big thing is trying to stay relevant as parents. Um, because the way we grew up doesn't exist anymore. So
yeah,
like we'll take Lucas for example. Like he's like, "Hey mom, I want to play Xbox. I want to stay up till midnight." Evelyn wants the TikTok and the Snapchat and the whatever Instagram or whatever. And like it's so weird being like having to play teenage parent and toddler parent at the same time. Like and because sometimes at least in our household, like you almost get like the wires crossed. So like you're yelling at Lucas or Evelyn for something, and then you turn around and you treat the littles the same way. And you're like, wait, nope, you're 2 and 3. Obviously, you don't understand the world. Um, but it's and to tie in our screen time episode, like screen time is so much different between teenagers and toddlers. Like
I mean,
I
is
like
it though?
it,
Because for every hour that Lucas wants to play Xbox, Ivy probably wants to watch Miss Rachel or something, right? I mean, it's
so
different, and the moderation is different, I'm sure, because especially, online gaming, we could go down a whole other thing of like
yes, we could.
what those interactions look like. Um, but I mean, that was around when we were kids too. Like, we honestly, we were in the wildest generation of internet kids because like I grew up on like Club Penguin, which was like raunchy chat room for 8-year-olds, and also in the world of like chat rooms. Chat rooms don't really exist anymore, which is a wild thing to
No.
think about, that like just public access chat rooms is a concept that Alana will probably never really be able to grasp because it's insane that it existed ever. Like,
But
hey,
it
this is just this random website that you go to and you log in and you talk to strangers that you've never met before.
as a penguin.
Yeah, or just about anything. Like, yeah, totally.
But it's like because it's so easy for kids these days. Like let's take the younger two. They love kid ASMR. Okay.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing until you're now seeing that like what was it? It was yesterday, I think it was. Noah was watching something and then it turned into adults dressed as Paw Patrol
Okay.
doing I wasn't there, but it was like it weirded her out. But like going back to but like, hey Lucas, you can go sit here and tell your friends that they're terrible, shitty people, but like, hey, you can't watch adults playing Paw Patrol, even though she took them to Paw Patrol Live and it's adults playing Paw Patrol. Um, it's such a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole here. We won't, but
Yeah, we won't. But like,
media, that's a whole second episode on screen time and media of like how do you monitor your kids and censor your kids' screen time appropriately without being over controlling, right? And
but it's one of those things, and because Lucas brought up something, you think it was yesterday, we sat out down to dinner, and like, the Noah understands the rules. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. So he told Lucas what the rule was, and I said, Lucas, he doesn't understand. He's 3. And he goes, but he just told it to me. And like, so I'm sitting there and I'm at a loss, like, but he's not wrong. So like, how going back to the, we're telling the 13-year-old something, and now we're trying to tell the 3-year-old, and we're trying to tell the 3-year-old, like, that age gap is fucking crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm no expert. I approach all humans as humans, and like I think one of the strengths that Alana and I have is that I talk to her the way that I talk to you, right? Uh, when I talk to her as an adult who I respect, and like she understands what I'm telling her, and I believe that she understands what I'm telling her. Now, am I going to have to explain things to her multiple times that I probably wouldn't have to explain to you? Yeah, because she's 2 and she has the mental retention of a 2-year-old.
Have you
Am I
met
going to
me?
have to explain things a little bit more in depth to her than I do to you? Maybe because she's 2 and she doesn't have the frame of reference and experience that you have to understand things. But you know, I don't talk to her like she's a kid. I don't talk to her like she's a toddler. I talk to her like she's a person. And I let her tell me what she doesn't understand and ask the questions. And there's a learning curve there, right? Because she doesn't know what she doesn't know. So a lot of things she doesn't know what to ask questions about. And I do kind of have to walk her through things. But I think that just leading with respect and trust and believing that she knows that when I tell her something, she, comprehends it and understands it. And if she says, okay, Dada, that means got it, we're good. And I think it for me, and again, I don't talk to a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old on a daily basis as a parent like you do, right? So you're definitely the resident expert here. But for me, like I don't necessarily see the need to differentiate in the age there. Because as long as you are approaching both of them as, hey, you're a member of this household and what I say goes and this is something that you need to understand, they're going to be on the same page.
Well, you and I are on the same page there. I'm gonna have you spend about a weekend with Lucas. All right. We will trade notes.
Solid.
And I'm not trying to say he's a bad kid. He's very set in his ways. He's very hard-headed. I blame his mother.
Well, I know teenagers are smarter than their parents and they know everything because they're teenagers.
That's true. But he was that way when he was 8 years old too. So he was pre-teenage. He was a teenager when he was 8. But it's one of those, and we tried to do. We talked to, obviously not Ivy. Ivy is Daddy's little girl, but we'll get on that in a different topic. But I tried to talk to Noah and to Lucas like that, like adults. And because I think studies have shown that as long as you don't goo goo gaga fucking talk to your kids as a baby, they actually end up smarter because they learn better. I remember reading that study years ago. So
yeah, totally. It also just helps their speech development because kids are little sponges and just mimic what they hear. So if you talk to your kid in baby talk, they're gonna speak English in a weird, shitty baby talk voice.
Yes. But it's and I think it was just like maybe the situation because it was last night stuck with me. Like I can talk to them both the same way, but I have to understand that they're both not going to understand the same way. And trying to get either party to understand that is very difficult because, like you said, teenagers know everything. I know nothing. 3-year-olds know nothing. I know everything. So it's a weird dynamic there.
Yeah, totally. So, setting aside the way that you came into the situation that you are, what do you think about the gap, right? Because you kind of have both sides of it, right? You had a 10-year-old and a newborn at the same time, and then you had a 2-year-old and a newborn at the same time. And I'm sure there are pros and cons to both of those situations. Um, what do you think as far as, and obviously, this goes for everything we say on this show. There's no right way to parent and to have kids, right? So like, this might come down to pure personal preference, but what do you think about that? The difference in the age gaps.
We were talking like Noah and Ivy, like
Well, so like, if you restarted your life from scratch and you were doing it all over again, would you prefer to have, two kids within 2 years of each other, or have, that larger gap of time between them, because having a 10-year-old when you have a newborn is, I'm sure it has its upsides because he can kind of take care of himself a little bit more than if you have a toddler and a newborn. They both need a lot of supervision. Lucas was old enough when Noah was born that he could help out a little bit, change diapers, feed him, whatever.
so you kind of hit it the first go around. Yes, there are some people. So like we'll take Evelyn into the account. So like Evelyn was very helpful when Noah and Ivy were born, and we're not sure why, because she was an only child, pretty much like Lucas, an only child for the longest time, and then she got a step sibling who was a couple years younger than her, or just a few years younger than her. But Lucas was old enough when each of them was born, whatever. My English is terrible.
Yeah.
That if we're like, hey Lucas, make yourself some lunch. So let's say I'm at work, so April can go and feed the baby, do something for Noah. But in a perfect world, and I'm not saying I'm not having this kid, I'm not having that kid, I would prefer if the kids were closer in age, because I see, like, we'll just take Noah and Ivy. Like Noah and Ivy are I want to say perfect age gap, 18 months. He has learned so much. And I don't know if he's learned so much because Lucas, or because how we have taught him, or anything, but he has taught Ivy so much, and like, and they're still able to be their full person. Like they still have room to grow. Having somebody much older rubs off on the younger kids. And while that's not a bad thing, I think it more not dampens. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but it pretty much it's forming the personality of the two younger ones to be like the older sibling, because that's what they know.
Yeah. Well, and you're always gonna, idolize your older sibling a little bit too, right? So like, to Noah, Lucas is the coolest person in the world.
Yeah.
Whether he's actually super cool or the biggest nerd on the planet, like Noah's gonna think he's the coolest guy, right? Because he's his brother, and your big brother is always the coolest.
And I think we're also looking towards the future, because we're also seeing, we watch TikTok, we see Instagram, we see Facebook, and like, we don't want Lucas to become like the other kids that we see and then influence the younger ones. And so that's why I'm like, if they're close in age, they can kind of influence each other all the way up until whenever. But that's nothing against Lucas, that's nothing against Evelyn. It's just from my personal experience growing up, and then seeing those two grow up together.
Yeah.
So like right now, perfect time to have that other kid. I'm not trying to pressure you, but like, if that's something that is a big issue for you, like, hey, we want to wait because we like the gap, like, I think now is the perfect time. Any bit more, and then you start having well, I'm older than you, I don't have to listen to you, and then I feel like how old are you, or what's the age difference between you and your sister?
We're 2.5, 3 years apart.
Okay, so I feel like that's the max. So like me and my siblings, my older brother is a year older than me. My next youngest sister was 2 years younger than me, and my youngest sister was 3. So like, perfect perfect age range.
Yeah, well, and that's, you see a lot of families that, like 2 under 2 or 3 under 3, where they're just pumping out kids year after year, and I'm like, that's cool. And like, I know a lot of people who've had 2 under 2 or had 3 under 3, or one person who has 4 under 4, and like, that's a lot.
Fuck.
You talked about the cost, man. Like, 4 kids under 4 years old, that's like, in shoes alone, that's a mortgage payment.
Like
Uh,
you will
but
never sleep again.
yeah, right. But like, it's that mentality of like, you're gonna have them all at once, and they're all like close in age, so they can all be this little brood of friends together. And then they're out of the house when all of them turn 18, and then you get your life back. I'm not one of those parents who feels like I've had my life stolen away from me and is desperate for my kid to move out. Like, Alana can live with us until she's 45. I don't care.
But because she's the only one.
Yeah. Somewhere there's a rowdy 17-year-old who's getting this video notarized in the future because Alana is getting on my nerves. Love you, sweetie. But
Like if I only had one
Yeah.
kid, and I'd be like, yep, yeah, you can stay as long as you want. No, I've got way too many kids. Get the fuck out of my house.
Well,
And
and
I make jokes, but like,
Yeah.
as parents, like we it's that we want to kick our baby birds out of the nest. Like, you need to learn to fly.
Yeah.
We love you, but we can't support you for the rest of our lives either.
Yeah. No, totally. Well, I think so like, between that, right? Between the 10-year age gap and the, 2 under 2, falls, basically where I'm at right now, right? Alana just turned 2, so the earliest we're gonna have another kid, she's gonna be at least almost 3. And I think a 3-year age gap, for a long time, I liked the idea of that tighter age gap, right? Like, 1 to 2 years, nothing longer. But we've gone through the last 2 years, and it's just, we haven't felt in a rush. And honestly, I love the idea of having kids that are 3 to 4 years apart, because it gives them enough space where they're still close enough in age where they can be really close friends, but they're also far enough in age that they're going to have different interests and like different
Mm.
friends groups and things. Because I feel like a lot of the kids that I know that have a 1 to 2 year age gap, they kind of like fight over their friends, right? And like, when one of them makes friends with
That
somebody at
makes
school,
sense.
the other one has to be friends with them, or the other one can't be friends with them because their brother is like, it's kind of creates that weird, like, almost competitive social dynamic. And that might just be those families, right? Because again, love isn't a limited resource. You can all be friends. Friendship is magic, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know, um, I see that, and I think that 3 to 4 year gap alleviates some of that, right? Because you're not typically going to have a lot of like 4-year-olds
And
that want to hang out with
and you're pushing
8-year-olds or so.
elementary with middle school with high school. Like, so no, I mean, that's a good way of thinking of it. I, having not been in a situation, I would have never thought that way, but like, that's actually smart thinking.
Yeah, and again, there's no right way, right? There's no right way and there's no wrong way. People have kids at different rates, and it's totally fine. Um, I'm just trying to figure out what that actually looks like, because we're the transition, and I'm sure when it happens we'll talk about it on the show, like the transition from having 2 parents to 1 kid to 1 parent to 1 kid ratio, right? We're going from having the upper hand to being evenly matched, and then falling into your position of being over outnumbered by our kids.
They'll never take me alive.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Having kids is fun. But everybody's situation is different. So like, what I'm saying here, all personal opinion.
Yeah, of
Just
course.
do what you can.
Yeah.
Enjoy
And
life. Know
and
know
like,
that your kids will outlive you most of the time. And if they had a
hopefully.
sibling, that helps them get through life even after you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something, a little bit heavier element of this too, but that's definitely something, right? That like, ideally your kids are going to outlive you, and that means that if you have an only child, they're going to have to handle the death of a parent or the death of both of their parents alone, or ideally with a partner or friends or whatever
Like nobody
relationship
understands it as
they
much as your
have.
sibling.
Exactly, because uh, God forbid my one of my parents were to pass away, Emily would be incredibly supportive of me and loving of me, and you and my other friends would be there for me and be empathetic. But nobody's going to know what losing Ed Goody feels like my sister, right? Like
Yeah,
nobody's going to know what losing my dad feels like for us, and is going through it in the moment. It's the same reason that we do this parenting podcast for dads, right? Like we're all dads. We're all going through this kind of unique, weird stage of life where we're parents together. And so having a support group of like-minded dads who are going through the same thing is really important. Nobody is going to be that bereavement support for you like a sibling will be.
that's
And
right.
it's a terribly morbid reason to have a second child, but it is an important thing to
it's
consider.
one it's just yeah it's one of these small things to consider for later in their life. Just like we were looking at Noah when he turned 8 years old, assuming Lucas went to college, joined the military, whatever the hell he wants to do. We knew that'd just be devastating for Noah. So think long term. Don't think of the well, obviously, yes, do think of the short term, but also think, hey, in 25 years,
What is having two
where
kids going to look like?
exactly.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a good tip and a great way to approach it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome topic, and I'm really excited. I love the dynamic, and I love getting to hear your side of things as somebody who has a diverse experience of fatherhood, shall we say, while I'm making those choices for myself, right? Because I get to you're kind of the proud of you for me. I get to learn from your wins and your mistakes and figure out how to do things in a way that feels good to me. Um, but I'm glad to be back and doing this.
Yes, this feels
We
good. Like
took a couple of weeks off, and I'm really happy to be back and putting out content for you guys. We're gonna keep it going. We've got, like I said, we've got some projects in the works and all kinds of stuff going on. But at the end of the day, our goal for you is the same as the goal for our kids. Just keep showing up and keep being there every week because we're proud of you.
that's right.
Until next week, I'm Andrew Goody.
And I'm Derek Mata.
Our social media links are down below. You can find us at Proud of You or at Proud of You Dads on any social media. If you have any questions or suggestions for our next topic, email us at proudofyoudads@gmail.com. We appreciate you spending your time and coming and hanging out with us. Share the word, like, comment, subscribe, all those things that influencers say. We really just mean tell people about this show because we want to reach as many dads as possible. So
Yep.
thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing.